Here.
I don't see members of ATA here or on Zoom.
Okay. Chief, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bruno's in the parking lot.
Okay, so. Okay, next we have adoption of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be deleted or added to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes, great. The chair to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as posted.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay, motion carries. 401 absent. Okay, public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the Measure V Oversight Board on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the Measure V Oversight Board or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The board cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note the comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Is there any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed. We'll go on to business. First, we have the approval of the minutes of our October 19, 2022 meeting with recommended action to receive and file. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Remember them perfectly from a year ago? Okay, I'd like to take a motion. I mean,
Vague.
vague. All right, we'll entertain a motion to receive and approve the minutes.
I'll take a motion.
Okay, and Bruno takes a second on the motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The minutes are now approved. Okay, adoption of resolution OC 2023-01, a resolution of the Measure V Oversight Committee of the City of Clearlake declaring compliance with section 3-7.14 of ordinance number 189-2016. Recommended action is to adopt the resolution and recommend review by City Council. Does everybody have a chance to take a look at that? Is there any discussion about?
We're gonna give an overview.
That's,
Do we want to have the reports first or so we know what we're approving?
this is kind of a summation of what we're going to do today.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's set this aside for a minute and then take our city manager and board member reports. And then we'll know that we are in compliance and we can go
Well, I
ahead and
think,
approve it.
not skipping to item F, but just under this item, I don't know, what both of you guys gonna give an overview of expenditures, or were you planning on just answering questions?
I thought you were giving them.
Well, I mean, I can do a basic, as you can see from last year's, well, actually, if you look at last year's compared to the previous years, we did have a reduction in revenue from sales taxes, and we anticipate additional reduction of sales tax revenue, and we budgeted for that going forward. We were conservative last year. We didn't bring in as much as we anticipated. We're not completely done with year-end close and still looking at accruals for there, so there could potentially be more revenue that we can accrue into last year's budget. But our revenues are relatively stable and our expenses are consistent with what we anticipated bringing in. So Addie can talk more about how we spent the funds and the projects.
Hi, so we did a little bit of work this year. We did the chip seal project, which is currently in progress right now. Will continue until tomorrow, along with some design for next year's projects. We currently have three that are using the Measure funds that are in process with design and archaeological review so that we can use these future funds in next year's projects. One of them is the Tree Streets area right here off of Olympic, Blue Gum, Redwood and such. The next area, Marissa, if you want to pull up the map.
Okay.
We have a map of the areas.
This host disabled screen sharing.
So another area that we're going to be doing is the ballpark area, including ballpark on the public roads that are south of ballpark moving towards Mendel Mill is another area. And a lot of Clearlake Park, beginning with 3rd Street all the way down to 16th, and a few roads. Woodland is going to be one, Calusa, and I believe Kern, the ones leading down to that connects Arrowhead to Lower Lake Shore. So there's a map. The green is the past,
The stuff we've done in the last
Yeah,
like
the
4
last
years, I think.
and then the yellow is what is going to be happening in the next year, with the chip seal being included in this year's project. So as you can see, there's a lot of work going to be happening. It's just right now, it's all in design and various stages of design. So we'll be really busy next year.
How much of this is chip seal and how much is paving?
Only this year, what we have now is I want to say about 3 to 5 miles is chip seal and the rest is pavement.
Have the prices for the chip seal been pretty consistent?
Slightly higher, not too much, but slightly higher.
Slightly, but we've got like 3 years of that now, right?
Yes,
So they've been
yes,
pretty consistent all along.
yes.
Same person doing the work?
No, the one doing this year is Pavement Coatings, who did the initial one in, I believe, 2019. Last year was a different contractor.
Yeah.
So it's a different company.
Yeah, I think we talked about that road that right across from the hospital entrance. I forget which one it is. It heads up the hill.
Mhm.
Worried about that not holding up. It held up pretty good.
Yeah, that's the same contractor. So we're really happy we have them this year because they did really good work. And it's,
I would venture to say that the chip seal program is a resounding success.
yeah, we feel really good about that.
A lot of people are happy. How much problem with drainage issues came up?
Well, to date, we've always tried to select areas that really didn't require any underground drainage or anything like that. So we still are kind of trying to select those areas that don't require culvert pipes. We've had to put a few in, but we're trying to avoid that just so we can get the chip seal down.
Yeah, I drove the area. I've driven it a couple of times. Once after the big rain that we had last year, and you could see the obvious problems with the drainage in the lower areas. The rest of the roads held up remarkably well. And none of this was really designed. It was just basically smooth out what we got and chip seal it, right?
Pretty much.
Didn't change much drainage, which could cause problems.
No,
I
intentionally, that's why we did it that way, because
I think the bang for the buck, I personally like to see more paving done, but bang for the buck made a lot of people happy with the chip sealing. And we don't have to go back and maintain them nearly as much.
No,
How are you handling that, by the way?
less grading.
Potholes that come up in the chip seal that we've done, are you patching them with what are you doing with it?
I'm not sure how the guys are doing it. I've seen a few, but I think the guys just went back with the normal pothole patching methods, better than the chip seal would look.
Yeah,
But we have to develop a way to, when the water companies go out and do what they need to do, they have to restore it to the best treatment, like the chip seal surface.
right. They pull encroachment permits and you guys are made aware anytime they're digging in the streets, right?
Yes.
well, that's.
Are they
Yeah,
actually?
It's supposed to
Well, are
be.
they actually doing
Yeah.
it? Are they notifying you?
For the most
Yes.
part.
Sometimes it's an emergency. and
Yes,
The cart goes before the horse.
What was that?
Sometimes it's an emergency and they
correct.
don't get into the city.
Yeah, but I think they have open permits, correct?
Not a blanket permit, no. we're working towards that. Our construction project manager is working to get a blanket permit.
Yeah.
For all of them.
So they're required to notify you though,
Yes,
within 24.
including AT&T, PG&E.
Yeah.
I don't believe MediaCom's on board with that yet, but they do notify us. But they don't do a lot of work here, so.
The guys are excited about not having to
Yeah.
do too much grading, in the future. And so at this point, I think really after this year, we're going to be looking at acquiring some chip seal equipment and then trying to redo it, keep the maintenance up on the chip
Yeah,
seal stuff.
it
ourselves.
also allows more time for more tree trimming, culvert cleaning, and there's a lot of, as we had in our meeting this morning with Laker, who's doing a stormwater plan for us, there's a lot of inlets and drains that need really deep cleaning, so they'll have more time to take care of that as well and take care of the things that they would take the time to spend grading the roads.
We didn't do too much actual road paving this year. That was one of the questions I had is how much of the Dam Road extension project that went in front of the county buildings there in Masonic Hall, how much of that was funded by Measure V? Pardon me?
And then there was an ATP grant through Caltrans,
Right,
$997,000 was spent on the entire project.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, really, going up the hill, that kids coming back and forth, people coming to Walmart, having that sidewalk there is big improvement.
Yeah,
I had a question. So are you trying to put in a contract where after you've created the fresh road that the utilities then are like only in emergencies allowed to cut into it and have some levels of?
so
I
we
mean,
have
I
an
know this
ordinance
is,
in place for that, that if they cut into a freshly paved road, they're required to pave back 40 feet each side.
okay.
Within 5 years of it being done.
Yes, we're
That's
getting a little pushback on it, but the ordinance
the
stands.
process, just wanting to see if.
Yeah.
And notifying them with enough, I mean, we've kind of seen this for a couple of
Yes.
years now, so they should
They
have
all have
seen,
this.
okay. So they have no reason not to have looked at the lines or assessed them.
So this fiscal year, then what roads did we actually asphalt pave?
We didn't asphalt pave any roads with Measure V funds this year. We spent this year putting those projects into design, and with that comes the archaeological portion of it, which has taken more time with the travel consultation and such. They're bigger projects too, that the one in Clearlake Park is quite large as well.
The which one?
Clearlake Park area.
So, yeah, I mean, there was a bit of a pause this year on actual pavement, but, we're planning on bidding, correct me if anything's changed, those 3 projects and even a 4th project not funded. Well, that one we're gonna have to bid separately. Together, so I mean, what is it, over 20 miles, right? Yeah, next year, so. Just to point out this, basically, I mean, most of this that you see on here is Measure V. Up on the north end, Lake Shore and San Joaquin, that's green. That was all grant funding that happened last year. And then you see Lakeshore Drive through the middle of town is yellow from City Hall down to Old Highway 53. So we have grant funds to repave that. That isn't going to happen next year. We're doing design work right now, but that'll be coordinating a whole streetscape project with sidewalks, curb gutter, all of that for that whole area. So we have that shown on the map, but it isn't Measure V funded. And then the other one, if you see Burns Valley and Arrowhead down through there, we also have grant funds that will be constructing that. So it's also in design right now. Should be constructed next year along with the other ones, but be done without using Measure V funds.
Are you going to have trouble with sidewalks and stuff as a part of coming down Lakeshore Drive? Is that something that you're working with the merchants on? Or are we going to have the same kind of parking we have now?
No, it's not going to be anything like it is now. Yeah, we haven't really started that yet with the business owners and other property owners. The plans are at 35% right now. So they're good enough that we're gonna have to start having those conversations, but you know, some of you may have been involved in the corridor plan that was done in 2014. So basically it pulled the preferred concepts out of that and we actually did the design, but it's everything, generally speaking, everything you see now where you pull into businesses in front of them is not going to be like that. It's all going to be parallel parking.
Okay.
Parking's available, and then we're going to have to
The back.
add some additional parking lots to make up because there's just not going to be as many spaces.
And that's common in a lot of cities.
It's not going to be diagonal park? Oh,
Bruno?
So, love what I see, love what's been done. One of the things, and I get it, we're not done with all of the roads, but we're starting to get to a much better place where I don't believe that Measure V prohibits sidewalks within the range of what can be spent. But I know seeing Dam Road Extension, for example, being punched through without sidewalks, then a separate project to add the sidewalks. And then I'm hoping a separate project in the future to add lighting, because it's still very dark to walk down that road if it's nighttime, which during the winter time will happen a lot faster than during summer. I'm really hoping that you can start looking at the arterials, and when looking at upgrades in the future, when you're touching those, to continue looking at sidewalks, continue looking at lighting, because that's only going to make it that much easier for people to walk, people to drive safely, and really make our roads have that boost that our roads have been needing for a long time. So I know you're doing that for Lakeshore. It's not Measure V, but I'm in very much favor of seeing Measure V being used to really show that these are our new standards for roads when we build roads, especially when it comes to arterials and those larger types of streets.
Or where the children are in their schools, I'd say too.
Any other comment or questions?
I did want to recognize that we have the debt service schedule included in the board packet for your review. And we have paid $1.5 million this fiscal year 22-23 for the first time paying on the loan. And we have a remaining 16.3 million due through 2034.
I will say it's a little difficult to read, to swallow that we've spent 1.5, but nothing has been done yet, but I know it's coming.
Well, but what she's talking about is the actual debt service
Yeah.
payment.
No, we've paid $1.5 million, but until next year, we won't see that loan turn into actual projects until then, but
Right.
I know it's coming.
But what's the interest rate on that one compared to what the interest rate would be today? If we took
We
out-
barely got it in there. I don't know if anyone remembers. It's 3 something,
It's
3.7, 3.2,
Well,
4,
That's
something.
what it says on.
Oh, okay.
3.2 is the net interest cost, and the all-inclusive cost for it, that interest is 3.36.
I saw our municipal advisor that helped us with that just last week at a conference, and he was just like, man, we barely snuck that one.
So where's this money kept? This,
Well, she has, if you look at the summary, there's 2 separate funds, and we provided the info on both of them for you. So Fund 220 is the Measure V fund where the sales tax revenue comes in, and then the various staff costs and equipment costs and that type of stuff is in there. And then let's see, we have the debt service payments are also paid directly out of there. So if you look down at the bottom, there's an interest paid account and a principal paid account. So that's where your essentially 1.5 million comes in.
And we have our reserve there as well.
And then there was the reserve that we put together. And then Fund 221 actually has the, whatever it was, 14.6 million where we started, is all put, the proceeds of that debt were all in that fund. And the project expenses will all be paid directly out of there. So it's easier to see.
is the money drawing interest is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
At what rate?
That I don't know. I mean, it varies on a quarterly basis. I think in the fund that it's in, I mean, it's in the state pool.
Right.
Well, does it cover the
It's in life.
interest payments is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think the last life I saw was like 3.3%.
is what we're getting.
Yeah,
And well, that's
something like that.
a good deal.
Yeah.
So we're even making a little money on our money.
Yeah,
Until we spend it.
Until as long as it's covered is what I was hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna last long. I mean, this year, a lot of it's sitting there, but I mean, we're basically planning on spending the 13.5 million that's sitting there next year.
Yeah.
But, the oil costs, especially with the chip seal and the paving, how does that factor into all this as far as cost goes?
I don't know if you guys can speak to what the unit cost.
Oil has been all over the map, we got into the hundreds and now we're down to 70. I don't anticipate them getting it below 70 again.
We build in an inflation factor based on the consumer price index. It won't be totally accurate, but it does account for some increases. Some years, if the CPI doesn't increase that much, then we're a little fat. Some years, if it increased like last year, it increased more, we might be a little thin, but on a running average, I think we went pretty close to our estimates of what we can.
And then hopefully, I mean, doing one contract for 25 miles should get us some savings too.
Timing on that though, with oil prices is big.
I mean, it's never right.
Bid
The
timing and
different-
oil prices.
Pardon me?
Bid timing and oil prices.
Yeah, $100 barrel oil and $70 a barrel oil, they make a big change. Anyways, okay.
Well, good thing there's no unrest in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I take it that next year when we meet again, there will be kind of a review of how the leftover Measure V taxes that aren't for debt service, how that will be utilized for continued road repairs and road maintenance and whatnot. Because that's what I'm really interested in seeing. What does the picture look like? That's going to be, because this is a lot to take in for 1 year. But on a year to year, we've been used to seeing what gets accomplished in a single year outside of the grants. I'd like to get a better idea and understanding of what's left over, $800,000 or whatever that is. What does that look like as far as road maintenance as we keep going? Because we know that we can give a 500% raise to people in 3 months. That's over with. The excitement's over and they want more. And so I know that people that haven't had their roads worked on, but have seen the 25 miles, they'll be appreciative of what the city has done as far as the city goes for the rest of the greater good. But 6 months down the road, if their road hasn't been done, they'll be asking us again, when? And so having that plan, before that plan was based on a year to year, based on the full year's worth of taxes, I'd love to see how that plan changes so that we can give them a 5-year outlook of what the 800,000 or whatever
That's fair. I mean, I would say two things on that. I mean, one, we need to update, we had the 5-year Measure V plan. And of course, that was has been sort of thrown into the wind in one regard because of these projects we're talking about. So a lot of the stuff that was on the 5-year plan is in this, and the years may be off 1 year or whatever. But anyway, we need to update that, and because some of it's going to be those smaller projects again that we're going to be able to do. And then the other part I mentioned earlier is, we're going to need to spend a little bit of money getting some chip sealing equipment, I think, so that we can start doing that maintenance ourselves.
How are you making these decisions? How are they being arrived at? Is the council deciding, or are these just based on recommendations from the city engineer? How do you decide to put this project over here and then do this one instead?
Are we going to use the road quality index?
Yeah.
Largely.
Go back to that.
We have just updated the pavement management plan.
I mean, you have, where's it at?
I suppose it's on our website,
Yeah.
but we can make sure and email it out to the group.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good read, right?
There we go.
Actually, I went through the original ones that were first done. It is a good read for me.
We have an 11-point PCI jump.
Yeah, that's great.
And you should
So getting back,
But to your point, I mean,
Yeah.
well, obviously we talk about it a lot internally, but we have talked about it with the council a few times. And I mean, sort of this whole strategy here was part of some workshops that we did before we issued the debt. And so, you know, they like the 5-year plan is largely based on the pavement management plan. And the only thing that really changed with this stuff was in trying to get projects grouped together and do big stuff all in one area. So there's some places like, you know, one of our council members really wants Rumsey Road to be redone. And
Is
that
that
was
the one that lives there?
Yes,
Ah,
that was on the plan for this year and that didn't get done. So, you know, but
So this committee doesn't have much input on any of that. There was a lot of talk at the beginning about going on the deep end and working your way to the arterials or vice versa. Because if you fix the arterials like Rumsey first and then go to the other roads, you've got these big trucks driving all over your new road to get there. Is there any talk about how that is being handled or?
We're not taking traffic flow these are such big overreaching projects that the traffic flow conversation doesn't help us. Well, that's what you're talking about there, because there's like Alex said, there's over 20 miles of paving that we're gonna be doing next year. And I would tell you also, I just want to expand upon this PCI index. I've been an engineer for 30 years doing this for municipalities. I've never seen a city increase their PCI by 1 point, never. And when I called NCI, the people who did the pavement management plan, you know, they'd never seen that. So when you guys did a presentation 6 months ago or something on that, people probably don't realize the impact of that, but an 11-point increase, that's like the win in the lottery. You know, that the odds of that happening, I just never heard of it. It just doesn't happen. I'm just plateauing.
It's 11 points over how many years? When's the last time the index was done?
3
years. Well,
never seen it over 30.
we're actually spending money. So these places that have never done anything like that, did they actually pass a tax issue and try to raise their?
Calusa just did.
Good. Yeah. I think it's a
well,
good
that's the
thing.
difference. Yeah, for sure.
Well, there's two ways to do these things. And one of them is to raise taxes. The other one is to generate more tax revenue from more activity. We haven't been able to do that. So this is the other alternative.
Well, the other difference though is, you know, what I have not seen before is the city manager propose leveraging the tax funds like Alan did, so that you can do this level of projects, you know, with that logic. I've never seen that either. So
Just using the taxes.
yeah,
I
you don't get those increases without going forth and leveraging those funds, so you can do these larger sets of projects. But, you know, down the line, it's such a huge savings to the city in terms of budgetary opportunities, because we're not out there, you know,
Yeah.
patching a pothole is the most inefficient thing you can do with staff.
I remember talking about borrowing money.
It's stupid.
I remember talking about money when Doug was here, talking about borrowing. I don't know if Alan brought it up, but I think it was $5 million. As Doug said, if I had $5 million, this is what we'd be working on. So why don't you borrow it? Well, money's cheap. I think you guys talked about it back then.
No, he wasn't there at the time. Chris Beck now said no to that whole, I was
Yeah.
pushing for it, and our finance director at the time said no.
Not a good idea. Huh?
Well,
Yeah.
it's not like it's a unique idea and I deserve credit for that, but you just have to remember who actually made it happen.
And I think we're also in a different environment. We weren't making 2 million a year in sales tax at that point in time. And so there's a lot more that can be done today because of the slow growth that's been allowed because of Measure V and other things that happened in the city. We're in a much better position. The interest rates, you would never have gotten the 3.2 back in 2016. That just wasn't that low at that time either. For some reason, they went even lower than historic lows from back then. So I think this was a unique situation. I'm glad they grabbed it. Glad you were able to get it locked in. I know I'm way ahead of the game, but I hope we're preparing a outreach that's going to be really strong, that's got a lot of good data, because I think we have the data shows itself all over the map, all over everything. But 2036 is eventually our deadline. And I just don't see this city falling off the cliff by not getting another extension to Measure V. The only way we're going to maintain what we have is if we continue Measure V. And if we could figure out how road maintenance such as this has increased the value of your property, I think that's something that can be really personalized on a individual level to understand, oh, I only give 100, but I get 1,000 back, something along those lines. So I hope we're getting ready for that and preparing, because it's going to be important to continue this. And I appreciate the work that's been done, because we're proving that it's well worth what we're putting into it.
And I have a question too. Since we have been so low on collecting property tax, what 1 in 4 units aren't paying property tax, I'm assuming we are the majority of that percentage. Is that going to help us just in general as well as in Measure V?
Well, a couple of things related to that. I mean, so you're correct that 25% of the properties in Clearlake were not paying, were delinquent at one point. I'm not sure what the updated number is, but as far as our property tax share, the county is required to pay it to us, whether you pay or not. So the financial impact is to the county more than to us. Now,
Has that started already, or is
It's
that?
been like that
it's been
for
like that.
as long as I can remember.
So they have to keep a fund, it's called the teeter fund, and they have to keep a certain amount of money in there. And they pay us the delinquencies. If you don't pay your property tax, the amount you don't pay us, they pay us. Now, if Ray buys your property because you stopped paying and
I
starts
bought it
paying
for a rate
again,
like that, and I
then,
paid all of
then
it.
they can take that money and they just use it in the general fund, right? So should be a big incentive for them to not do what they were doing. But I mean, there is an impact that's a little harder to quantify for us, because so many code enforcement issues, blighted properties, people just stop paying. And so they sit there for decades. And when they force the sales, it spins more of that into productive use where people pay, it raises the values, does all sorts of other things. So fortunately, the new tax collector it's a whole new world there and is making a lot of progress.
Good. I'm glad. I'm sure he would be making progress. Thank you.
And just as a idea of the changes, we used to lose about $700 to $1 million per year in our teeter. Now we just put 2.5 million into the general fund at the county because teeter's full. So things have changed drastically, even with previous tax collector of doing 1,000 properties per tax auction. And that's just changed a lot. It's not going to go back to that.
Great. Are there any questions from the public?
Bruno, I got a question for you though. Were you talking about 13 years from now going after more taxes? Is that what you're talking about?
I think that everything is going to continue to be difficult to maintain at the level that we're doing it right now. And this tax, in my opinion, should be a forever tax. I think it sells easier if it's got a sunset to it, but
Did you try to pass one with the county?
not yet.
I think the other thing to think about in the future, and hopefully we can make a little progress on this before 13 years from now, but we still have like 40 miles of private roads in the city. And, once we get a handle on the public ones, I think we need to be more aggressive on taking those into the public network and maintaining.
Especially when they're right in the middle of the city and they stand out.
Yeah.
And we get calls all the time.
Sure you do.
I don't think it'll be a difficult endeavor for a.
What are you laughing for, Mo?
And I guess there's a question on how they became private roads, because all the roads that were subdivision maps aren't on the same subdivision map. They're not the same. So the theory I heard, hearsay, is that if you went out and weren't happy with the city's maintenance and you started doing maintenance, that became a private road.
No.
My very first assignment here as city engineer, Greg assigned me figure out public versus private. Because all it was a hand drafted map and why.
Right.
And Some subdividers dedicated the roads with the final map to be public roads. Some subdividers chose to withdraw that dedication or not dedicate the
They
road.
didn't offer them.
They didn't offer them for dedication and they weren't.
Okay, so it's
And then
based on our subdivision map.
Yes.
I'm good with
And then
that.
there's a third scenario where they offered them for public use and the Board of Supervisors rejected the offer,
Okay.
which makes it private. So
How
that
did,
happens a lot back.
how did the utilities, PG&E and telephone company, and county with the sewer and the water companies, how did they navigate that?
They have easements.
Pardon me?
All those subdivision maps provided easements.
So they had to get permission from every property owner?
No,
No,
it's
when they
designed
subdivided and recorded the map, there's an easement there for public utilities.
But the easement wasn't dedicated then?
The roadway wasn't dedicated to a public road. So Lake Osan might have a Lake Osan easement. That doesn't make it a public road.
Interesting.
Not the way it's supposed to be done.
No.
Wild West. Melissa, do we have any questions or hands raised on the screen?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom.
I have one last question about where this $16 million sits. There's no indication here of this 3.3%. Why? Of that we're getting
Oh, well,
back.
So the money goes in the fund. Quarterly, we're notified what the interest amount is. So it's called LAIF. It's Local Agency Investment Fund. It's operated by the State Treasurer's Office. So I think you could probably
What's the acronym again?
LAIF. You could probably go on their website and get the interest information. I mean, school issue, I know you probably have.
We
money
have,
in
we
that.
have money in LAIF, and you can go to the treasurer, state treasurer, and you look under LAIF, and it'll say average monthly yield and I look at it every month for the money that we have, and it's been running a little over 3.4%.
Okay, but that's not on
It's
this,
not.
on this page.
No, yeah, no, it's not. So at the end of the fiscal year, we get our interest amount and then finance allocates. So we have these funds and other funds in that account too. So they all get allocated to the funds where the interest was generated from, and then that gets added in. So that interest allocation hasn't been finalized yet, but you'll see that be added in to the overall amount.
And
When
we're,
that's done, could you email that?
sure, and we're working on verifying the contractual agreements and making sure we know which funds are required
I
to
think,
be paid interest and that we're. meeting
okay,
all of
yeah,
those.
thank you.
Right, because there's more money in there than just Measure B money.
Yeah.
Right? It's all,
Yes,
and then it gets prorated out.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, just one other quick point. I mean, we kind of talked about this, but just to give you an idea. So, I think another reason we've been able to make such an impact is, I mean, Measure V is a huge part of it, and it's given us the opportunity to do a lot of things, but we've been very successful in getting grant funds in to add on to Measure V. So those green streets up there, that was $19 million in investment. About 11 million came from, I think, Measure V and some gas tax, and then 8 million was all grant funding. And so over the next few years, we're looking at 21.5 million in total projects. 10 million of that, or almost half, is from other grants.
Awesome.
So,
If I remember correctly, we were only anticipating $2 million a year from that.
initially
Tax.
it was 1.7.
Yeah, I knew it was down there somewhere, and we're in the 2.6 or 7 category. That's a good thing.
And you're right. This is a little painful for you to be looking at me when you said we haven't done much to generate additional sales tax, but I'm still confident that a lot of those projects are coming together for us, which is going to make a big difference. So,
Yeah. Can we talk about that? What's going on at the airport?
maybe another time when we're not on TV.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I get a motion to offer the resolution?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Melissa, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Member Sabatier,
Can I open for discussion real quick?
Calling the roll.
Just a quick question. I just thought of something as I relooked at it.
Okay, we'll reopen.
So we're saying expenditures and appropriations of tax, of date of measure, or to date of measure V tax revenues. Can we put and debt service or loan? Because that seems separate than taxes. Or are we not giving oversight of the loan? Because you're planning to use the taxes to pay it off. So there's a very direct relationship. Just kind of curious. I just kind of want to open that up. I'm being looked at like you were hoping I wouldn't ask that question.
Well, we actually did talk about that. But I think, my opinion is everything stems from the Measure B expenditures. That's really what your responsibility is, I think. And I mean, I don't know that there's any big negative if you wanted to include something in there, but we decided we didn't think it was necessary.
I don't know that I think it's necessary either, because we've already approved that process. So what we're doing is taking money out of this fund, which already exists.
I mean, this is just, are they spending the money appropriately? And we, as a committee last year, supported getting the loan and going to the council with the loan. So I think that it doesn't need to be added additionally. It's like,
Otherwise, you're looking at,
you could break down chip sealing and curbs and gutters and sidewalks. And it's just like, I think in general, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, is what we're saying.
Just wanted to have the conversation.
no, it was good.
Aye.
all right. Member Alvin, Member Silva,
Aye.
Member Schultz,
Aye.
and Chair Colbrand.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to city manager and board member reports. I think we've probably got a lot of that already, huh?
Nothing else to report.
I'll say it again. I've toured the streets across the highway, the chip sealing, and really impressed on how it's held up.
Yes.
I think it was whoever came up with that idea. Couldn't have been you, Alan, huh? I think it was Dave. I worked out really well.
Yes,
Just like the other thing, not a new idea, because you brought it up saying, so if we spend $5 million on dirt roads over the course of 10 years, we end up with.
Thank you, Bruno. I appreciate that. You got a memory like an elephant, you know that?
But I appreciate those that made it happen, because it needed to happen, and you're changing the entire landscape of how people want to care for their homes and how they can appreciate hanging out outdoors in their barbecues and doing all those other things without getting dusted up. That is a huge change.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just, that's the way we operate. I mean, I think this was a discussion we had around this table a number of times, like, we're tired of spending money grading and it lasting a month. Like, what are we gonna do about this? We can't afford to pave everything. So,
That's
Cool.
really nice.
I don't remember everything, but I remember that.
Does
I
it?
toured it this morning.
I remember.
Does it make sense?
Okay, any other reports? Any other questions people have?
Maybe just briefly let them know on a couple other projects we're working on, the grants that you submitted lately.
So the Reconnecting Communities grant we just submitted is for the pedestrian overcrossing near South Center Drive, to go overcross towards the airport side of the road to increase connectability from one side of the highway to another, to the other side, I'm sorry.
We're at,
South Center Drive across the highway.
just right there across the
Right there,
street.
yeah, and we're looking at other areas over near 40th, 18th is just kind of thrown out there as an idea, but with our main focus on South Center Drive to access.
I
the
think that
airport.
that's a great idea once you develop the airport, but
Yes,
right now, all it's going to do is increase the foot traffic through my property that I have there. They're coming in through there all the time. Where are they going right now? If they come across South Center onto the airport property, where are they going?
we're not quite sure at this time, but it's gonna be in, well, they're gonna land over there. We don't have anything in design. And so as the development increases over there, we're going to have a place for them to go to. And then with the transit hub, it provides a place for them to.
Yeah, well, that would
arrive on
make
side.
sense.
Yeah, so that's our main focus. And we just submitted a regional improvement program application for construction of the roundabout at Dam Road. So by roughly,
Well,
I applied for 5.5 million, but we expect the cost to be around $8 million.
And
Raymond, question. Going down towards Lake Street is Dam Road. Going down up the hill to 18th is Dam Road Extension. What's that little road between 53 and Walmart? Is that also Dam Road? Because I'm confused as to what that's.
Probably, I
So
mean,
we got like three different
Yeah.
directions of Dam Road.
we put a lot of creativity into road naming. for
Is it
sure.
Dam Street? I always get confused when I give people directions. You gotta take a left on that. I'm like, and then I think it's still Dam Road.
and what about airport property development?
That is,
That's the separate
That's what he
conversation.
doesn't want to
It's a whole
talk about
different-
on TV.
Different
Well, I
subject.
mean, the part we will talk about is the 18th Avenue extension. So that was designed, actually went out to bid, we awarded the contract. Construction should have started, but that is tied up in litigation with the Koi Nation. So the trial on that happens next Friday. So depending on the result of that, we'll either be able to start construction
Okay.
or start at the beginning. But that's a $4.5 million project that also has no Measure B funds in it.
That's all funded through,
Discretionary city dollars, some traffic impact fee funds,
Local
ARPA
partnership.
grant funds.
local partnership
you
program.
guys have done really well. Everything out in the park that was done recently, all that paving was grant, right?
Yep.
Guys have done really well with that. Getting back to that over Highway 53 crossing, that should go in concert, my opinion, with the airport development.
I'm sure it will,
Yeah.
with the timing of the way funding will occur.
We agree. Those regional things, I mean, it takes so long to get the funding and all that. I think the timing will actually work out fine if we're awarded that, because we'll be starting the environmental document on the whole thing probably shortly after the trial, and we'll go from there. So.
One last thing, Bruno, again. You were talking about sidewalk, curb and gutter. Are you suggesting that everything we do? No.
No, I think if you're in the residential streets, it's okay to not have sidewalks because cars should be going slower. But on arterials, like if I'm going to Arrowhead, if I'm going on 40th or 18th, having a sidewalk would be really nice to really separate pedestrian activity and vehicular activity.
I think we discussed that. I made a few comments about it. My own opinion should be judicious with concrete work, because I think the original intention of Measure B was people thought they were going to get their roads fixed. They didn't think they were going to get sidewalks or mow strips or curb and gutter unless they already had them. They wanted their roads fixed. Like Woodland, for example, it is just a nightmare driving down that road.
I'm
And,
glad it's on the list.
would I suggest sidewalks there? No, grind it and overlay it, get it to where you can drive on it, is what I'm looking for.
And my opinion, and I'm doing this for many different things, but roads included, we got to step up the level of standard that we expect when things happen here in Clearlake and in Lake County. And again, not saying everywhere should have sidewalks, but in certain areas, it just is the right thing to do for safety and everything.
And you think this committee should have input on that sort of thing?
I think that Measure B already allows for those things because the definition of road can be a pretty broad thing where even streetlights should be part of roads. But I just wanted to share my support for that. just because I think as we get towards 2036, we need to show that we didn't just do things, we changed the standard of what's expected next time that somebody puts in a road or next time that somebody's doing road maintenance.
We disagree on that one. Fix the roads.
Wouldn't be the first thing.
But Ray, the
Well-
drainage improves the pavement preservation at the end of the
What
day.
was the first part of that? I didn't hear it.
Doing drainage, it just protects the pavement,
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah,
That's a good
drainage
idea when-
and sidewalk, curb and gutter, and most strips
Yeah.
are different things.
Speaking of, can I ask what the plan is for Arrowhead and the Schwartz Pond?
No.
I heard it was aptly named.
Oh, God. It's just been solved.
If you go down Arrowhead, is it Peony?
No, you're in the wrong spot.
It's either Arrowhead and
It's
it's,
San Joaquin
it's
and, San Joaquin
and-
Extension
And
and Monterey.
Monterey.
oh, no, I'm talking about Arrowhead when you go towards
Oleander.
Como.
That's Oleander.
Oleander. Arrowhead and Oleander, it's got that low where it's literally like a foot worth of water and it moves towards the house on the south side. Everybody just,
How many ponds do I have?
Well, you have Schwartz Lake and then Schwartz Pond.
oh, sorry, that was Schwartz Lake.
It's like down road. When you pave 20 miles of road, something's gonna happen. I'm not sure about that location.
Because I know you did a lot of, whatever you want to call it, but hydrology work within the Lakeshore Drive changes. I'm just hopeful for those two houses specifically and for the longevity of the road, that something it can be accomplished. I just don't know what that is since it's kind of in a valley area. Makes it tough.
And remember, this was a huge rain year. So this happens
Oh,
what, about
it-
every.
It takes a tiny bit of rain.
On Oleander?
Oleander and Arrowhead.
I don't,
Well,
as long as I've been around, I don't.
Oh, it's in
recall
design
that. Must have
now.
been a hell of a rain season.
Okay.
It's in the new stuff. I mean, I would just say like, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about none of this stuff was done right the first time. And it's difficult to balance like doing it at a 10 and taking twice as long and doing nothing or doing a lot of the stuff at like maybe a 7, right? But on the drainage stuff, we know that's a big problem and we got grant funds to do a citywide storm drain master plan, which is surveying all that stuff. And so that, our hope from that is that then we're going to have a document that we can plan more of these projects out to solve some of those issues. But, you know, we just can't stop and do everything or we're never going to get any pavement out there either. So
That's why I think the decision on the chip sealing across the highway was bold. Because you ride that line between affecting drainage and making roads. And you've done a good job with that. You said you just walk along and say, we're going to do this and we're going to do that with the crews before they chip seal. Not many complaints, I take it. What I've heard is all positive.
It's quite the opposite, yeah.
Yeah, all positive. Thank you, thank you.
the only complaints is, why did you stop there?
On the hydrology, we do look at it very, very closely. And we always continue to, because it always makes us nervous. It's one thing that makes us really, really nervous is hydrology.
Okay, do we have any future agenda items that people would like to see on the future agenda?
Can't deviate too far from what's already on there.
Hearing none, is there any future agenda items, Andres, on the Zoom call?
They're not.
Very well then, it's what? 2:54, meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Have to vote
Do
on
we
it?
have
So do we have to
to,
vote?
do we,
You don't have to.
we don't have to adopt the resolution?
Oh, we
Oh, you
did.
did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Got it.